Hello everybody. So today we're going to be going step by step on this painting here, and basically we're going to be going color by color, and we're going to be doing this just because this is an introductory class to watercolor. So we're going to start with our softest colors first, and again during this video what I do is I'm going to pick our color, and then I'm going to run through and I'm going to paint everywhere on this image where that color is going to be. So when you guys are following along, don't feel like you need to rush to keep up at my pace. Don't feel like you need to, or you're not painting correctly if you're unable to paint as fast as I am. The process of this video, or the reason why I'm doing it so fast, is I'm going to get it all done for that color, and then we're going to pause this video. And the reason why you're going to pause the video after each color is it's going to give you a still image to where you'll be able to see everywhere where that color is going to be. And then once you guys can go at your own pace. Once you guys feel like you're done and ready to move on to the next color, you just unpause your video, and then we'll switch color on our color palettes, and then we'll go ahead and start with the next color, and we're going to repeat that process. So with our second color, we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to run through and paint everywhere on this painting where that color is going to be. I'm going to do it really fast. And again, don't feel like if you can't paint that fast, you're not doing it correctly. Everybody paints at their own speed. Some people paint really slow. Some people paint really fast. There's no correct or wrong way to paint. That's the beautiful thing about art, is it's pretty much your own style, your own pace. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Between each colors, again, you're just going to pause the video so you can see the still image of what is going to be painted, and we hope you enjoy it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with our softest color, which is going to be yellow. And so this is the kit that you guys have. If you don't have this exact kit, they're pretty much all the same. So we're going to introduce water into our palette here. We're going to whisk our brush around in the water, and we're going to start with yellow. And once we bring water into that yellow, we're going to go back to our cup. We're going to do this 3 different times. Go back to our cup. And the only reason why we do it 3 different times is this specific brush doesn't carry a lot of water. And that's actually good for beginning stages of watercolor. So you just want to move your brush around inside this yellow. And then once you see the water take the pigment of the color, then you know you're ready to paint. You want it to be the consistency of just water. You just want it to look like yellow water. Once we get that done, we're going to start with our sun here. And just think of it just like you would a coloring book. Now, because this brush is not a fine detailed brush, it's going to be hard to get really in here and get in detailed here. That's okay if you go across the lines. It's completely okay. Now, the cool thing about watercolor is, so I got this initial yellow on my sun. Instead of going back here and getting more paint, I'm going to go to my cup of water, and I'm just going to bring in more water. You see how I just brought in more water, and I didn't necessarily get more paint. Now, the reason why we do this, number one, it saves on our material. And another thing it does is it gives the illusion of just light and dark areas. So it's not really opaque, or it's not really just one solid yellow color. That's how watercolor is basically used. So again, I'm going to get more water. This time I'm just going to get a little bit more paint, and then I'm going to start on the other side. Now you notice this is only 2 strokes of me getting paint. And then once you notice, so if you notice, I'm starting to run out of paint, right? Like there's no more paint on my brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my brush, dip it in my water, and bring it right back without getting more paint. And then I'm just going to go right back and forth on that yellow. And again, it's going to activate the paint that's already on my my picture here. And then I'm going to put a little bit of yellow right here in between his feathers. Now again, if you guys go over the lines, don't feel like you messed up your painting, okay? Just like that's all part of it, especially with watercolor, just because watercolor is real fluid, so it's really easy for your paint to cross over into the lines, and that's completely okay. So right here, I'm pretty much done. I'm gonna leave this little edge of just paper that we're gonna come in with another color. So now I'm gonna come and I'm gonna paint some other colors here. I'm gonna do a couple stripes on his brooch here, or cloth. And I'm gonna get a little bit more water in here for my yellow, and I'm gonna do one stripe. I'm gonna get a little bit more water. And you'll notice if you feel your paint, when you're moving your brush back and forth in your paint, if you feel it like it's a little bit sticky, that just means you need a little bit more water. And then I'm gonna skip a couple lines here, and I'm gonna do a little bit more. Now, don't go back and get more paint. You always wanna go back and get more water first, and that's gonna extend the paint that's already on your paper. And again, that's a good habit to get used to, just because it saves on material, and you really want it to look like a watercolor painting, which means it's not a real solid color. So I'm gonna run through and I'm gonna paint everything that's yellow on our image here. So I'm just gonna start doing this real quickly, and at the end of when we're done with all the yellow, you guys can pause the video, and then that'll give you enough time to paint all the areas that's going to be yellow. Again, don't feel like you need to rush your painting, and don't feel like you're doing it wrong if you're not painting at my pace. So again, you just want to make sure you have enough water inside your yellow. And I'm going to run through and I'm going to paint these little triangles. And for this part, don't really feel, if you guys go outside of the lines. So again, here, I'm just gonna get more water. If you guys go outside of the lines, don't feel like you messed up your painting, or you're not, painting it good, or you're not doing it right, or don't feel like you're not gonna know how to paint, or don't get frustrated. All these things are just learning experiences. And I'll just give you an example. I'm just gonna go over the line here, and that's completely fine. It doesn't mean that my painting's ruined. It just adds a little bit of character to your painting. And so these little tiny triangles down here, it's going to be real hard for us to paint with this kind of brush. So I'm just going to dab the yellow. And you don't even necessarily have to fill in the whole triangle. Getting more water, adding more paint. I'm going to do these triangles here. Getting more water, getting more paint. Now you guys can go ahead and just, if you're still working on the sun, or if you're working on these parts while I'm doing these triangles, you guys don't necessarily have to watch me paint all this. I'm just gonna run through and I'm just gonna paint all these areas. Once again, see here, I went outside the line. That's completely fine. I'm gonna do this area. And again, what I'm doing is I'm going to go and get more water, not necessarily more paint. And if you can, okay, I'm going to need a little bit more paint here. Now, if you can kind of see, I'm going outside the lines. That's completely fine. And these triangles here. And again, just once you feel like the paint is not flowing on your paper, that's when you know you just need to add a little bit of water. Now, because this is going to be some of your guys' first paintings, it's kind of a balancing act, right? So sometimes you get too much water, and sometimes you don't have enough. And all of this is just going to be learning experiences as we go. So you'll notice if you have too much water. You'll notice if you don't have enough water. And I'm not going to expect for you guys to really realize how watercolors work in the beginning. So this is, again, this is just a trial and error, a beginning process of watercolor for you guys. Paint this part here. Paint this little bit here. And it looks like we have a little bit here. So again, you can kind of see here, I'm going outside the lines, and I'm not worried about that whatsoever. These little tiny triangles, I'm just going to dab my brush down. Just going to dab my brush down these little triangles. Again, you guys are going to be going outside the lines, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what's going to happen when you first start doing watercolors. And it looks like we're almost going to be about done with our yellow here. And we'll do one more things here. We'll do this little spot yellow. So this is a good example of too much water. I don't know if you guys can really tell, but it looks just like a raindrop on the ground. It's protruding out on top of the paper. And this is why we don't want to move our paper once we're painting. You just want to keep it flat. And this is going to dry. It's not necessarily too much water. It just means that we just can't move our paper until it's dry. This is going to soak into our paper and it's going to dry. So if you have a kind of water sitting on top of your paper, just know that that's a little bit too much water. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. It doesn't mean you're going to ruin your painting. But that's just one more area where that can happen. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch our colors. Now, a rule that I try to just really pound into new painters is it's really important to wash your brushes in between colors. And it's really important to keep your palette clean. If you've done watercolors in the past, or if you've seen younger people do watercolors, their colors will start getting mixed together, right? And then everything will just start to turn brown. Now we want to avoid that. And how we're going to do that is we're just going to try to really keep our painting palette really clean. And that's the main reason why we're going color by color, starting with the softest color. So if, just an example, if we started with the black, which is always a no-no for watercolor first, and then we try to come in here and paint this yellow would not look like this. This yellow would be a lot darker. It wouldn't be really bright. And we would have just ruined our paintings right off the bat. So you always start with our softest colors. Black always last. Black always used sparingly. Just while you guys learn how to watercolor. That's not the rule across the board, but it's just a good rule for beginners. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch to our orange. So go ahead and pause the video. Go ahead and pause it. Let you guys catch up. And then we'll start to our next color. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you guys got all the yellow done. So now we're gonna switch to our orange. And this is just our progression in these light to dark colors. But how we switch colors is you just wanna whisk your brush in your water back and forth. It doesn't need to be perfectly clean, or, you know, just whisking your brush 2 or 3 times around is gonna be good enough. Now we're going to do the same exact thing we did with our yellow. We're going to bring that wet brush into our orange paint. We're going to do that about 3 or 4 times, going back into the water and back into your orange, moving it back and forth. Go back into the water, bring it back to your orange, move it back and forth. If you feel it sticky, that it just means you need a little bit more water. So I'm going to add a little bit more water here and just moving it back and forth. Add a little bit more water, moving it back and forth. And just like with the yellow, once you start to see the water take hold of the orange pigment, then you know we're ready to go. So what we're going to do here is we're going to paint this outside of our sun. So we're just going to do one line. We're not going to worry about bringing the orange inside. We're just going to do one line all the way across our sun here. So I'm going to grab my orange. I'm going to start at the bottom here. And I'm just going to go up to the edge. And I'm just going to do one line. And if you go outside the line, it's completely fine. Don't feel like, don't feel like you messed up your painting. I'm going to get a little bit of more orange, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. And again, this is the same rule applies. If you start to notice that you're running out of paint, just grab a little bit more water at first. And then just extend that life of your orange paint. And I'm going to put some orange here. And you kind of see here, I went inside the feather. That's fine. If you guys did the same thing, that's fine. We're going to leave this here while it dries. And I'm going to run through and I'm going to put orange just like how we did on the yellow. I'm going to put orange everywhere where we're going to need it. And then we're going to give you a chance to catch up. So again, don't try to stay at my pace. We'll be able to pause the video so you guys can catch up. So you guys can have a still image of the orange. So while you're doing that orange around the sun, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paint some these triangles here orange. And it looks like I need a little bit more water to get it to flow a little bit better. And see here, I got a little bit too much water. And again, so I paint all the time, and it's still a learning process. And sometimes mistakes can actually make your painting better. It gives it a little bit more life. So try not to put any pressure on yourself. You know, mistakes are going to happen, and that's just the story of life. You know, you learn from them. Just like when you're doing your homework, you know, first couple times you try to answer a question, you might get it wrong. And then you just learn from it. Don't make that mistake again. And then just fix it. Same thing with art. You know, you make that mistake, you learn from it. And then hopefully you won't make that mistake again. Even though you probably will. Just like I do, I make mistakes all the time. And again, so I'm just running through and I'm going to paint everything that's going to be orange. So don't feel like you need to paint at my pace. I'm going to paint some of this regalia here. And again, like this is just a feeling out process of how watercolors work. You know, you're going to get a feel if you need more water, if you need less water. All of that comes with practice, you know, just like anything else, you know, just like when you're in school and you're trying to figure out a math problem for the first time and you don't really understand it. You know, it's going to take practice to get it fully, to understand it fully. You know, same goes with art. See here. So you kind of see here, I'm just being a little messy with it, and that's completely fine. Throw a little bit of orange here. Now these little fine areas, you're gonna make mistakes. Most not because you're not good at painting, but a lot of it has to do with material. So our brush here is not a fine brush. You know, they make brushes that are real fine lines. So just do your best. Just put 2 lines. If it bleeds out, that's completely fine. Okay, so this looks like this is going to be all the area that's going to be orange. Okay, so go ahead and take your time. We're going to pause the video here. And then so you can have a still picture and kind of realize where everything is going to be orange. So we'll see you in a bit. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay, thank you guys for waiting patiently while the rest of the class catches up, or if you're painting an individual. Hopefully you got all the orange up to date, and we're ready to make our next color change. So our next color is going to be this hot pink color in our palette. If you're using a paint palette that doesn't have hot pink, you guys can substitute that with another lighter color. or even just with the red. But for right now, we're using this hot pink color. We're going to get some water, and we're going to do the same exact thing when we switch colors. Again, this is just really important to try to keep our palette clean. We're going to whisk our brush, clean it, and we're going to start again, just like here, with the water in our brush, bringing it over here, moving it around. We're going to do that 3 to 4 times, of putting our brush back in our water, bringing it back to the pink, putting our brush back in the water, bringing it back. And we're going to do that 3 or 4 times. Again, if you have a brush, a different kit and a different brush, you're not going to need to do that, just because some brushes carry a lot more water than this one. So we're not going to use this color too much, but our powwow dancers, their regalia is usually really bright and colorful. So we're just going to add a little bit of pink in here. I'm just going to add one little stripe here, and one stripe in the back. And we have this area here. I'm going to do one little pink area here. And I'm going to do this area pink here. Now it might even kind of be hard to make out this image just because it's a lot of cluster in here. So he's holding a fan here in his hand. This is his hand, this is the fan. And then this is a vest and his regalia that he's wearing. So we're gonna throw this little circle in here, little pink color. And this little part right here. Okay, so we're done with the pink. We're gonna pause the video and then we'll move to our next color. Go ahead and pause now. All right, welcome back. And now we're gonna switch colors to red. And again, this is just the same process. We're just gonna wash our brush out, whisk our brush, and then we're gonna add water to our red color here. So go ahead and move your brush back and forth, bringing in that water in your brush and moving it back and forth on the red. Moving it back and forth. Moving it back and forth. And then once again, once you start to see the water take the red pigment, then you know you're good to go. So we're gonna do the shirt that he's wearing. We're gonna do that red. And again, the same thing applies here. Is once you start to see your brush, your red not taking in the flowing off your brush, try adding a little bit of water first. And you can kind of see here, I just added more water. I didn't get more paint. I just got more water. And that's the cool thing about watercolor, is it gives you the effect of just lights and darks and gradations and shades all by itself. You know, a lot of people, when they use acrylic paint, they try to get this effect, and watercolors kind of do that on their own. So this black elbow area here. Now, if you notice, this part is a darker red than the other part. That's fine. It just means that I got more paint. So yours might be darker, yours might be lighter. It just really depends on how much paint you get in your little brush stroke. Another part that's going to be red is this part of his shirt. So you just think of it just like a coloring book. You just want to go up to the edge. Go up to the edge here. Now again, if you're not painting at my pace, don't feel like you need to speed up. We're gonna pause this video so you guys can have a still picture of where to put the red. And the reason why we're doing pause the video is just because everybody paints at a different pace. Not everybody is gonna be able to do it at the same speed. And because it's not a live class, because you guys are following along, you guys are going to be able to pause it on your own to see the still picture. Okay, we're going to do red up here. And I really want you guys not to try to worry about the speed of what you paint or feel that you need to paint faster. Painting real fast doesn't mean that you're a better painter. Everybody paints at different speeds. There's no really wrong way or right way to paint. Again, that's why painting is so important for kids, as what I think is it really challenges the mind. It helps with concentration, and it gives you confidence. You know, once you start getting good at these paintings, you're proud of them. You want to show them off, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being proud of your work. We're going to come in here and we're going to paint this middle headband area. I'm just going to paint it all red. And if it blends in with the orange, that's completely fine. Don't worry about it. And we're going to put a little bit of red at the bottom of our moccasins here. Now down here, it's a real small area that you need to paint. And again, our brush is a wider brush. So you're going to make mistakes. And that's completely fine. If you look at me, I completely went over. I left this part white. I'm going to leave it that way. One last part that's going to be red before we stop the videos, so you guys can get a still picture, is this little area here. And I'm going to try to come in here in between these feathers. And again, if you guys just use the very tip of your brush, I should have brought that up earlier, but you just want to use the very tip of your brush to try to get in fine lines. And again, if you're not able to do it, don't feel like you're not a good painter. It's just, again, it's just all practice. And I'm gonna get this little area here. Okay, so this looks like it's gonna be all the red that we're gonna use for this painting. Now you know what? Let's do this. Let's do these mountains red also. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw in some red back here. So before you guys pause your video, this very top mountain area, I'm going to go ahead and paint it all red. Now once again, see here, I'm running out of paint. I'm running out of paint. Now instead of going and getting more paint, I'm going to get more water. And this is how you want your water colors to really look like even now. So now I'm even running out of more paint. I'm still not going to get more paint. I'm just going to get more water. And that just gives you a really good light and dark effect of your colors. It's a nice little cool effect that's pretty, stands alone in the watercolor family. You know, you can't really do this with other kind of mediums. And that's why a lot of people love to use watercolors. Okay, so I'm gonna come over here. So I have this whole mountain range red here. Okay, so go ahead and catch up to what I have red. Go ahead and do that now. Go ahead and pause the video, and then just so you can have a still photo again and do all of this red, and then we'll go ahead and get started once everybody's complete. All right, thanks everybody for being patient and finishing up your painting. So now we're going to kind of switch gears here, and we're going to switch to a different color. You kind of just want to stay with watercolors. You kind of want to just stay all inside the family of the reds in the beginning. And the reason why we're doing that is just we really want to keep our palette clean, because we know that there's a lot of beginners painting here, and we want to make it easier for you guys. So our next color up that we want to just be soft about is we're gonna switch to our skin tone here. So if you have brown on your palette, or if you have this one that we provided for you, this is more of a color palette than some of the watercolor kits that are out there. So if you have just a darker brown, go ahead and use that. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this lighter brown color here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to move our color back and forth, our brush. We're going to add it into our brush, move it back and forth. And this is going to be our skin tone here. So we're not going to use that much of the color. If you need more water, if it's not coming off of your brush real smooth, it just means you just need to add a little bit more water. If it comes off a little too easy, that just means you have a little too much water. And again, this is all just a learning process. So see, even here, I accidentally went into this red, so you kind of see how it bleeds through. That's completely fine. I'm not worried about this at all. It just adds a little bit more to my painting. So another part that has his skin tone showing is his hand here. I know it kind of gets lost in kind of this cluster back here, but this little area here is his hand. This is another area that we're going to paint that brown. So you kind of see how my red is still bleeding into my brown, and that's just the cool effect that watercolors do. They just bleed into one another, and I'm really not worried about this at all. It's going to add to my painting. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to just keep trucking along with this this brown. Before we get into our darker colors, we're going to blend this out real quick. And the more you use watercolor, you'll learn how to blend colors, and you'll learn which colors blend together nicely. So obviously our reds and yellows will make orange, so then orange and yellows will blend really nice. We could have put red here, and we could have blended our red into our yellow and made orange. That would have been another blend, but I wanted to make it a little bit easier. So now that these two colors are dry, the thing about watercolors is once you add water, it's going to reactivate this paint. So it's going to be able to blend these two colors together once we add water. So that's what we're going to do here. You want to make sure the brown is off the brush first. So we're just going to move it back and forth. And we're not going to add any color. All we're going to do is we're going to add water. So I have a brush full of water, and I'm going to put it right up to where the two colors meet. And I'm going to move my brush back and forth. And you'll start to see the two colors blend. And this, again, this is all comes with practice. If you want it more orange, if you want it to go more inside, you guys can do that. The more water, the less water. Again, this is just all practice. And you guys aren't going to get it right in the beginning. If you guys do get it, that's great. If you guys don't get frustrated. So what I did is I went and got more water, and I'm just going to move my brush back and forth right where the colors meet. And once I start doing that, then you can start moving the brush over here in the yellow. I can get a little bit more water if you want more water. And I'm going to add it up here. And I'm just going to be blending these colors together. Now, the more you paint, you're going to realize what colors can mix together. So if we had two colors that wouldn't mix good, you guys can't do this. You can only do this with certain colors that will complement each other or on the same side of the wheel. And all that's just for like later classes or more advanced techniques. But if you kind of see here, we have our yellow sun, and now it's shaded into our orange. And that's just a cool technique of just how to blend colors together. And so go ahead and pause so you can finish that up. Pause the video and give everybody a chance to finish it up, and then we'll step to our next color. Okay, thank you for waiting, and we're ready to move to our next color. So now we're going to use this dark brown. So this is a technique that I want to show you guys in case you didn't have this larger palette, in case you didn't have the lighter brown. We're going to do the same exact thing with every color again. We're going to whisk our brush back and forth. We're going to bring our clean brush with water into our brown. We're going to move it back and forth. Now, you guys want to keep in mind when we're using these darker colors is they're really strong, right? So you don't want to just put too much paint on your painting, just because it'll take over the painting. So just how we would add water to our red to extend the color, that's a technique we really want to use a lot in this painting. So now that I have my brown, I'm just going to put a tiny bit of brown at the top of here on the fur around his braids, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to put one little stroke of brown there, and then I'm going to leave that. So now we're going to do this brown, the ground that he's dancing on. We're going to do that brown also. So all these little squiggly lines, are going to be brown, brown paint strokes. And it doesn't need to be perfect. So if you kind of watch here, I'm going to get more water just so it flows easy. I'm just going to put brown lines on these lines on our ground here. And this one you might need a little bit more water on your brush just so it flows a little bit easier. You can kind of see I'm I'm getting more water and moving it back and forth in my brown pretty much on every stroke. I'm gonna get more water, more brown. And I'm just gonna follow these lines all around the ground where he's dancing. Okay, so once you guys get this done, we're gonna pause the video just so you guys can catch up. So go ahead and pause now. Okay, so now that we're back to here, our technique that we're using is we're just gonna reactivate this paint. And the reason why we're doing that is just because it's a darker color. So we're gonna use this paint to go all the way down here. And we're gonna do the same thing with these brown around our edges. Now, one thing about watercolor, try not to think of it like you need to paint every single space on our painting here. So on our ground, we're gonna leave a lot of white. And the reason why we're doing that is in watercolor, a lot of watercolor circles or watercolor paintings, they wanna know that it's an authentic painting. So if this was just a picture or something done on the computer, this is just another way to show that it's an authentic hand-painted painting. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bring water and extend this brown, just like how we did our red. So I just have water in my brush now, and I'm just going to bring that brown down. And it doesn't need to be super dark. You can kind of see how it's really light. If yours is dark, that's fine. I'm going to get more water and I'm going to bring this brown down. Now say for example you don't have enough paint and you want it to be darker, you can just go in and get a little bit more brown. So I'm going to start at the bottom. I just went in and I got a little bit more brown, and now I have a lot. So I'm going to get more water, no more paint, just water, and then I'm going to connect the two. And again, this is just give you another way to use the color and to extend your life of your paint and to give lights and darks. See, so if we just did all brown, it would be one color. But now we have a darker brown up here to a lighter brown to a darker brown. Say I wanted to have a darker brown on the other end, on the other side. I'm just going to add a little bit more paint, and then now I'm going to go up. And then I'm just going to leave it there. So now you have darker brown going up, darker brown going down. Now we're going to finish our ground here. We're going to do the same exact thing. We're just bringing in water on our brush, and we're just moving it back and forth. And this one you might use a little bit more water than other parts of our painting, but I'm just going to use the water to activate this brown. And I'm really just, there's really no correct way or wrong way to do this other than just moving your brush back and forth and kind of just making it messy. Again, so if the water is going to reactivate this paint, so you might need to dip back into your water a few times. And again, we're learning together on how much water is too much, how much is not enough. And on the other side, I'm bringing in more water. And I'm spreading it around. Once that water hits this paint, it's going to reactivate it. And now I'm just going to spread it all around on my paper here. I need more water. So you kind of see how many times I'm dipping back into my my water. That'll kind of maybe give you an example of just how much water we're going to need. Moving it back and forth. Dip more water. Moving it back and forth. Again, so what we're doing is we're just reactivating the brown that's already on our paper. And by doing that, it's going to give you the ability to kind of just push that brown color pretty much in all directions. And it looks like I need a little bit here, I forgot. So I'm just going to get a little bit of brown. And then I'm going to come back with water. And then I'm just going to move it around. So you can kind of see the whites of the paper kind of showing through. That's kind of what the look we're going for. So don't feel like it's messed up or you messed it up. This is the look that we're going for. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and pause while you guys can get all this done. And then we'll start back up once you get it done. All right, so hopefully you guys are ready to move on. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use this purple. So the purple is right next to the white on this palette. If you guys don't have purple, you guys can use, reds, or for our second mountain here, any color you want to use here. You just got to really make sure that your brush is clean before you move to our next color. So before we do that, you know what? Before we do that, let's use this turquoise color. And that's the thing about painting. And sometimes you just get, you just want to do something different, and that's completely fine too. A lot of times when I'm doing my paintings, I'll have an idea of what I want to do, and my mind will change as we go. So we're going to step to this turquoise color. So we have a clean brush. We're going to bring in the water. We're going to do that 3 or 4 different times, just like what we've been doing. And we're going to move our paintbrush around until we see the water take hold of this pigment. So the first thing I'm going to paint is the inside of his vest here. And again, I'm going to run through and I'm going to paint this real quick just so you guys can have a still picture of what to paint next. But for right now, just start painting the inside of his vest. Now, this is like on the blue family. So you'll notice if it hits in the green a little bit, it's going to start changing colors. If it hits in the red, it's going to change colors a little bit. That's completely fine. If it hits the yellow, it's going to be turning a little green. That's fine. But you just want to try to stay inside the lines. Again, just like we're using a coloring book. And not everybody is going to be able to do that, stay inside the lines, especially in these little areas. So if you guys go outside the lines, that's completely fine. Don't feel like you messed up your painting. And then you'll notice if it hits the red, it might turn a little purplish, or the yellow might turn a little greenish. And all of that is just learning processes of painting. And here, and we're going to paint this part of the fan, maybe to show like a little beadwork, colorful beadwork there. I'm going to do this little part back here, this color. And this last little bit here. And here again. So don't feel like you need to rush to keep at my speed. You know, again, I'm just rushing through here so you guys can have the still picture of what we're going to paint next. And our fringe here is also going to be this color. And again, this is just all a learning process, okay? So, say for example, you're not happy with this painting. That's going to happen a lot. So it even happens to me. You know, I paint pretty much every day. And, you know, I'm not happy with every painting I do. And, you know, it's kind of weird. Some of my most popular paintings that people really enjoy are paintings that necessarily I don't like. And that just goes to show you that everybody loves different things. You know, some people really like my black and white paintings. Some people really love my colorful paintings. You know, for some people, a lot of color is too much for them, so they don't really like my colorful paintings. I myself, I love painting with a lot of color. I just think it just brings out, it brings a lot to the painting itself. So these little parts, try not to worry too much about getting every little fringe here, just because you're not going to be able to get it with these little this brush. So you just want to paint in the general area. Obviously, you want to just be as careful as you can, but I just really don't want you guys to put too much pressure on yourself to try to make everything perfect. Just because with anything with art, you know, there's nothing that's going to be perfect. I don't have one single painting that I didn't make a mistake or that I think I could have done better. And that's the cool thing about art is, you know, you always want to make your next painting just that little bit better, just because you feel like you might have messed up. So if you kind of feel like I'm repeating myself, I just really don't want you guys to feel like your painting is not as good as mine or not as good as somebody else who's participating. This is really just about learning, right? So this is like, so for some of you, this is going to be your first painting. So we're learning. It's our learning process. Your second one is going to be better than this one. Your third one is going to be better than this one. And eventually you're going to be running through these things. So this is pretty much all the blue that we're going to use. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pause the video and then we're going to go to our next color. All right, so welcome back. And so now we're going to switch again. We're going to switch our palettes. And again, I know I repeat myself, but it's really important to just keep your colors separate. You really don't want to get our colors mixed together, just because you'll end up with just a brown mess. But for now, we're going to do this purple here. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to whisk our brush back and forth. We're going to move it back and forth on this purple. And this purple is really dark. Some people even think it might be black. But if you can kind of see here, you know, it's purple. So we're bringing in that water. We're bringing in that water until you start to see a water consistency take hold of your purple pigment. And what we're going to do here is just like how we did up here with that line, we're just going to do a line of purple all along this mountaintop. So I know it doesn't make sense now, but we're going to come in and we're going to shade it out. So you just want to grab more purple and you just want to do a line. Maybe the thickness of your brush is fine. And we're going to start it up here. And we're just doing a line right across the very top of our mountain range here. Get a little bit more. All right, so we have our line here. So so you want to ask, why did we just do a line and not paint all of it? It's because we want to give a nice little gradation from dark to light. kind of like how our brown is here. You know, our brown is dark brown to light, dark brown to light. We're gonna do this same thing, and this is just another technique of just fading out color when you're using watercolors. So once we have this purple line all the way across, we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're just gonna bring in water on our brush with no color. So we come in with just our brush with water on it, and we're just gonna paint right where our purple meets the white, and we're gonna bring it down. So I'm coming in with just water on my brush, and I'm just gonna move it back and forth, and I'm gonna bring it down, and I'm gonna bring that color down. Now you might need more water to really activate that color. So we're just gonna bring it down. And you want it to look real soft. So it might even not even look real like purpley anymore. That's fine. You want it to be just real soft, only dark at the very top. We're bringing in more water. We're gonna do the same thing on the other side. Right at the edge where the purple meets the white. Now, if you bring up your brush with water all the way at the top, that's fine too. You know, you can go all the way up to the top if you wanted to soften up that purple on the top. And we're just gonna bring it down. Now, you might need to put more purple. Maybe there's not enough. So I'm gonna go grab some more. I'm gonna put some on the top. And I'm always gonna start at the top. I'm gonna go in and I'm just gonna bring more water in. And then I'm just gonna pull that color down. All right, so while you guys go ahead and do that, we're gonna pause the video again so everybody can start the next step together. So go ahead and pause now. All right, welcome back. So now we're almost done with our painting here. Again, we're saving black for last. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna paint a little bit of our sky here. So we're not gonna paint the whole sky. But again, following our same technique here is we're gonna clean our brush and we're gonna activate our blue paint here. So you bring in our brush, move it around in the blue, move it around in the blue. We're gonna do that 3 or 4 times, exactly like how we've been doing. And you just wanna move it around until you really see that water taking that color. Now we're gonna do the same thing we did with our purple here. We're gonna do a blue line all the way around our sun here. And then we're just gonna stop. You try to be careful not to go inside the red or inside your sun. So I have one blue line there. And I'm gonna do one blue line on the other side. So you kind of see, that's what it looks like when you run out of water. So I'm just gonna get a little bit more paint. And I'm going to connect it too. And you don't need to worry about it bringing it down here. So again, we're just going to use the same technique as that we did with the purple. And we want to leave some of the white out here. Just like how some of our white down here, we're going to do the same thing. So now that we have our initial, this is all the color that we're going to need. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come back with just water on our brush. Come back in with that water and go right up to the area where the color is. So this water, what this water is doing is it's reactivating this color. And then once we reactivated it, if you want to get more, that's fine. And then you'll start to be able to bring it out. Okay, so I'm going to bring it out to about right here. So I'm just starting right here and I'm bringing this color out. Moving it back and forth, moving it back and forth. You want it to just flow naturally, softly. It doesn't need to be perfect. You can kind of just hear, I'm almost scribbling. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna bring the water on the brush. I'm gonna activate this blue. I'm gonna move it back and forth. And then I'm gonna bring it out. See how I'm bringing it out? And once I bring it out right here, I'm gonna grab a little bit more water and then I'm going to start right here. And then that's really going to make it blend into the white. Bring more water in here. And I'm going to do it at the very top. A little bit more water. And you almost want it to look like water. And when it dries, it'll give it a little effect. So go ahead and kind of play with this before we go to our next color. Go ahead and pause the video so you can get a still pic, and then we'll see you in a few. All right, welcome back, and thank you for waiting patiently. If there was anybody who didn't catch up in the class. So now we're going to start with our black, but before we use black, you really want to scan your painting to make sure that you're completely done with all areas. Okay, so now that I'm looking at my painting, I have this white part here and a part here, and then I have his stick here. So so I'm just gonna whisk my brush, and I'm just gonna come back with, we'll just use this light brown. And again, if you painted these areas, that's fine. If you didn't, just go ahead and do this now. And I'm just gonna throw a little bit of color right here. And I'm gonna throw a little bit of brown right here. Almost looks like a yellow color, that's fine. And right here. This little part here. And this little part. And then I'm gonna put my brush back in my water, move it back and forth. And so you're just gonna give your painting one more little scan here before we use our black. And black is such a powerful color that it's really easy to mess up your paintings, especially with watercolors, because once you get black on your paper, you can't really put anything over it. It's forever going to change the brightness or the vibrance of that color you try to put on top of it. So in beginning stages, you really want to try to do it last. So what we're going to use this black for is we're going to use it very sparingly. We're going to use the same technique as we did up here, same technique as we did with our purple. But we're just going to add little tiny bits of black on our feathers here, our feather here, and we're just going to add a little tiny bit of black in the hair. Now, when I mean a little bit of black, I mean we're barely going to use any. So we're going to use our, whisk our brush back and forth, bring it into our black, move it back and forth just like how we've been doing 3 different times. And I'm just going to put little dots of black. Don't even think about painting areas when you're using this color. So I'm just going to put a dot on the hair, a dot on the braid. I'm going to put a dot at the top of the feather. I'm going to put a dot or a line at the top of that feather. I'm going to put a couple dots inside here. And I'm going to put a couple lines on the very tips of our feathers here. And the same with these feathers. Just put one little dot on each little feather. And what do we have? A couple of feathers here, little dots, and a little dot here. Okay, so now that we have all these little dots, if you guys don't have all these little dots done yet, just hold off, and I'm just going to give a quick demonstration so you guys can catch up. But this is all the black that we're going to need, okay? Again, we're going to use that same technique of just dragging paint. I call it dragging paint because that's basically what we did, is we grabbed this initial paint and we drug it out here into this space. Same here. So we're going to do the same thing with this black. So now we're not going to use black paint anymore whatsoever. We're going to come in with just water on our brush. And we'll start off with the hair here. And you can kind of see that it's well more than enough paint to to color the what we need. So we're going to come in with more paint, and we're going to activate this black and go up, and it's going to turn it to a gray. That's fine. You don't. So if you look at watercolor painting, all of our colors are not real dark, right? So this is just going to go into this style of painting of just real soft, no really hard dark colors. And we're going to bring in just water at the very tip of the feather, and we're going to stop at this line, bring in water at the very tip of the feather, and then stop at that line. We're bringing in water, and we're going to just move it back and forth. And again, this is just a learning process. You know, if you guys aren't getting a hang of it, please don't get frustrated. You know, everybody learns at a different pace. I myself take a long time to learn. Everything's hands-on for me. So for some of you, this might take more than just one try to get this, or to really understand what we're doing here. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, just to use myself as an example, just even my whole life, even in school, you know, I was the type of person that had to do things hands-on more than once to learn it. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So if you can kind of see, I'm bringing in just a little bit more water. I'm going to make this all gray, and that's completely fine. We're bringing in more water, and we're going to do the same thing with our feathers here. We're going to go all the way down, bringing in more water to where it's going to make everything gray. And say, for example, you put too much black. So say if it's bleeding out, or you feel that it's too much, you know, again, just try not to be too frustrated. Don't be too hard on yourself. And one little area here with the black, and one little area here. So go ahead and pause the video, and we'll let you guys do all that black. All right, now that everybody is done with that black, it looks like we're done with our painting here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Once again, just try not to put too much judgment on yourself, too much pressure. This is a learning process. Just art is just like anything else. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And people are going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, and I do this for a living. So don't be too hard on yourself if you made mistakes. And I hope you enjoyed it, and just keep doing art and keep doing it.